Women, during the Civil War, had a large influence on the war's outcomes. In the Union, women worked as military nurses, fought secretly in the war, and performed various other tasks that eventually led to the Union's victory over the Confederacy. Over 2,000 women volunteered as nurses in military hospitals for both the Union and the Confederacy. Catherine Dumrose, a correspondent at Nurseweek magazine, paints a vivid picture of their vast work.
Clara Barton, her apron soaked with blood, working tirelessly beside surgeons as they amputated arms and legs. Louisa May Alcott, bringing water to crying soldiers, cradling their heads in her arms, scribbling as they dictated letters home. Dorothea Dix and Miriam Bickerdike, defying male surgeons and administrators to make sure the nurses and patients got the respect and resources they deserved.
Nurse Mary Steinbaugh wrote a letter to her father in 1863, explaining the reasons compelling her to become a nurse in the Civil War.
I may be compelled to face danger, but never fear it. And while our soldiers can stand and fight, I can stand and feed and nurse them. The conflict is one thing I've been waiting for. I'm well and strong and young enough to go to the front. If I cannot be a soldier, I'll help soldiers. What could I do but go with them, or work for them in my country? The patriot blood of my father was warm in my veins. You have given your boys to die for their country. Now you can give your girls to nurse them.
Louisa May Alcott recounts a day of extreme nursing during her service.
In they came, some on stretchers, some in men's arms, some feebly staggering along, propped on rude crutches, and one lay stark and still, with covered face, as a comrade gave his name to be recorded before they carried him away to the dead house.
Civil War nurses helped greatly in the Union. They passionately served with no thought of recognition for their work. Finally, they were recognized in thought.
The national commander of the GAR expressed that the memory of these nurses will ever live in the hearts of the veterans they nursed with such tender care.
Nearly 2,000 women in the North and South served as nurses in the Civil War. A nurse's duties in the Civil War were to assure that all patients were fed the correct diet, and to manage the physical, spiritual, and emotional needs of the patients. The female nurses took on the role of mother, daughter, or sister for the male soldiers. Few nurses were ever present on battlefields due to the fact that they were heavily discouraged from doing such tasks by most society for simply being women. Men felt that it was unladylike for women to care for naked men, or that the horrific scenes of war were not to be seen by females. However, most of the nurses refused to stay put and went to the battlefields anyway. Women such as Clara Barton and Annie Etheridge offered aid on the battlefield and would remove bullets with a pocket knife. Dorothea Dix and Clara Barton were the leaders of the national effort to organize a nursing corps to care for the war's wounded and sick. There were many requirements to get the job, such as clothing and action requirements, and also restrictions on who to or not to associate with. Still, many women were interested. These women all sacrificed time, saw horrific sights, exposed themselves to disease, and the end of the war received no recognition or thanks. An example of other help that women were able to give during the Union during the Civil War is Elizabeth Van Lew. Elizabeth Van Lew helped men escape, smuggled out letters, and gathered valuable information about the Confederate strategy to give to the Union. In 1863, she was recruited as a spy and soon became head of an entire espionage network based in Richmond. She sent coded messages to Union officers and convinced many new members to join her aiding the Union. Harriet Tubman, a woman essential to the Union cause, said,
"I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves."
She helped greatly as a spy and transported slaves from the South to the North on the Underground Railroad. Anita Silvey, author of I'll Pass for Your Comrade, Women Soldiers in the Civil War, talks about how women were able to help on the battlefield.
Many people know about Clara Barton, the nurse who did so much to save soldiers' lives, but few have heard of Sarah Emma Edmonds, Rosetta Wakeman, or Mary Galloway. They were among the hundreds of women who assumed male identities, put on uniforms, enlisted in the Union or Confederate Army, and went into battle alongside their male comrades.
It is documented that 135 women fought in the Civil War, although historians estimate the figure to be as many as 400. Even years later, the government tried to deny the women soldiers help to the Union Army. Women soldiers had to dress up as men to be able to fight with them. Most women were successful in their ruse. Sarah Emma Edwards was able to be a spy for the Union during her time, impersonating a man. Because of this, Congress allowed her the allies of Frank Thompson in 1884. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, that the Secretary of Interior is hereby authorized and directed to place on the pension roll the name of Sarah E. Seeley, ally Frank Thompson, who was laid a private in Company E, 2nd Regiment of Michigan Infantry Volunteers, at the rate of $12 per month. In conclusion, the Confederacy's defeat was largely due to the Union's large amount of women on their side. The Union had many more nurses, spies, and women soldiers. Therefore, women played a great role in healing troops, getting information, and fighting for the Union in the war.
In Amsterdam there lived a maid, mark well what I do say. In Amsterdam there lived a maid who was always pinching the sailor's trade. I'll go no more a-roving with you, fair maid, a-roving, since roving's been my ruin. I'll go no more a-roving with you, fair maid. I took this maiden for a walk, mark well what I do say. I took this maiden for a walk, she wanted some gin and didn't she talk. I'll go no more a-roving with you, fair maid, a-roving, since roving's been my ruin. I'll go no more a-roving with you, fair maid. She said, you sailors, I love you so, mark well what I do say. All you sailors, I love you so, and the reason why I soon didn't know. I'll go no more a-roving with you, fair maid, a-roving, since roving's been my ruin.